Coming up on Network Africa. At least 20 people killed in a militant attack in Burkina Faso's northern border region. U.S. Secretary of State begins his Africa trip. Antony Blinken expected in Kenya on his first trip to the continent. Plus, the second edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair kicks off in Durban, South Africa, with several African leaders in attendance. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
Son of former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, registered as a presidential candidate on Sunday in the southern town of Sebha. Gaddafi is one of the most prominent figures expected to run for president in the December 24 election. A list that also includes Eastern Military Commander Khalifa Haftar, Prime Minister Abdul Hamid al-Dibeiba, and Parliament Speaker Aguila Saleh. While Gaddafi is likely to play on nostalgia for the era before the 2011 NATO-backed uprising that swept his father from power and ushered in a decade of chaos and violence, analysts say he may not prove to be a front-runner. The Gaddafi era is still remembered by many Libyans as one of harsh autocracy, while Saif al-Islam and other former regime figures have been out of power for so long they may find it difficult to mobilize as much support as major rivals. Sudanese Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan chaired the first meeting of the newly formed Sovereign Council on Sunday, November 14, just one day after thousands took to the streets rejecting the military's takeover of power. The new ruling council replaces the power-sharing body he dissolved last month and excluded members of the civilian coalition that had been sharing power with the military. The council is expected to name a new prime minister after efforts involving the United Nations to mediate between the military and ousted Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok stalled. Pro-democracy groups led by neighborhood resistance committees are organizing a campaign of civil disobedience and protests against the October 25 coup, with another day of demonstrations planned for Wednesday, November 17. Finally, Tunisian police clashed with protesters near the chamber of the suspended parliament on Sunday as demonstrators marched against President Kais Saied's seizure of political power 4 months ago. Hundreds of police had blocked off the area where thousands of protesters were gathered to demand the Saied restore parliament and normal democratic rule. Increasingly vocal opposition, along with a looming crisis in public finances, may see a new test of how Saied and the new government he has appointed will tackle threats to their authority.
To our main stories for today, at least 20 people have been killed in a militant attack in Burkina Faso's northern border region. Authorities say 19 of the victims are said to have been officers in the military police and one was a civilian. The militants targeted an outpost near a gold mine in Inata. 2 days earlier, 7 police officers were killed in another attack in the region which borders Mali and Niger. Islamist militants with links to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group operate in the frontier area. The 3 countries, backed by Chad and France, have deployed hundreds of troops there to quell the insurgency. The UN Chief for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, says there is a risk of the G5 Sahel joint force losing the gains it has made. According to him, security efforts alone are not sufficient to address the crisis in the Sahel. A holistic approach is required.
The joint force is now at the crossroads and there is a risk that it will lose the gains that have been made. The Secretary General is clear in both his letter and in his recent report. The joint force remains a vital part of a collective security response to the multiple challenges facing the region: terrorism, weak border security, trafficking in person, illicit goods, weapons and drugs. It is the collective responsibility of the international community to support the commendable efforts of the G5 Sahel member states. Security efforts alone are not sufficient to address the crisis in the Sahel. A holistic approach is required, one that honors the primacy of politics, addresses governance deficits and the root causes of poverty and exclusion, and which seeks to provide opportunities and fulfill lives for the many young people in the region.
The second edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair has kicked off in Durban, South Africa, with several African leaders, including Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, in attendance. The event is hosted by the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, and the government of South Africa, with the theme focusing on the newly launched African Continental Free Trade Area. Over the 7-day event, more than 1,000 exhibitors from across the continent will showcase their goods and services. Over 5,000 visitors are expected to attend. Addressing the conference, Chairman of the Advisory Council of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, highlights the importance of the event to the success of the ACFTA.
The IATF is the largest and go-to trade and investment fair on the African continent. The trade fair is also one of the key initiatives in support of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area provides an opportunity for the continent to achieve economic emancipation and self-reliance. The Intra-African Trade Fair is an important component in righting the wrongs of the past and breaking down borders. It is aimed at building bridges to help us achieve the ambitions of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. In the context of post-COVID-19, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area are probably taking on an even more important role as the framework for African economic recovery. I agree that implementing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is the best stimulus for building forward better post-pandemic economies.
Well, according to President Muhammadu Buhari during his speech, Africa must be a marketplace where no country is left behind. President Buhari, while addressing others, urged the African leaders to support local entrepreneurs. He also highlights that Nigeria has made significant strides in the diversification of its economy in the last 5 years by putting in place policies that support investment in key sectors.
Most of Africa's existing challenges, whether security, economy, or corruption, can be traced to our inability over the years to domesticate the production of our most basic requirements and provide jobs to our teeming and dynamic youth population. Under the African Continental Free Trade Area, we can double our African trade by 2030, reduce our reliance on imports, and therefore create more jobs within the continent. We cannot achieve this goal by talking alone. The implementation will be a difficult journey, but all challenges are surmountable if both public and private sectors collaborate. On the public sector side, governments must support local entrepreneurs to build scale and therefore improve productivity. This means providing incentives to encourage our businesses to formalize and comply with laid down regulations. Let me assure you that Nigeria has come to Durban in full force to actively participate in this very important trade fair and take full advantage of all the opportunities it provides.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is beginning his trip to Africa with Nairobi, Kenya as his first stop. He's expected to meet with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs Ambassador Rachel Omamo. The Secretary and representatives of the Kenyan government will also be discussing shared interests as members of the UN Security Council, including addressing regional security issues such as Ethiopia, Somalia, and Sudan. Mr. Blinken will then continue his first official trip to Africa in Nigeria, where he's due to meet President Buhari. During his stay in the capital, Abuja, he's expected to announce a new U.S.-Africa policy. Mr. Blinken's trip will then conclude in Senegal, where he'll meet President Macky Sall, who's expected to take over the chairmanship of the African Union. Cyrus Mbati, Kenyan journalist, joins us now for more details on Mr. Blinken's trip to Kenya. Hello, Cyrus. Thank you for joining us. What time is the U.S. Secretary of State expected to land, and what are the plans that are in place for his visit?
Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken is expected to arrive tomorrow, Tuesday at night. He's expected to land at JKIA. He will be arriving at the day when the regional bloc of leaders are meeting in Uganda to discuss the crisis in Ethiopia. Part of the reasons Secretary Blinken is coming to Kenya is the crisis in Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, and generally in the regional security. After his landing, he's expected to meet a group of civil society groups. Then he'll meet the ambassador, the Minister for Foreign Affairs to Kenya, in Kenya, Ambassador Rachel Omamo. Then he'll meet some officials from the embassy. Then later on, he'll meet President Uhuru Kenyatta. That now will be after Kenyatta and the regional leaders from East African bloc under IGAD have finished their meeting in Kampala, which President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda has called to discuss the crisis in Ethiopia. You understand, yesterday President Kenyatta was in Ethiopia, where he met the local Prime Minister Abiy and the President, where they held private talks. They say the private talks, but we understand the ongoing crisis in Ethiopia that's pitting the national government, and the Tigray was the subject of discussion. They were looking into ways of solving the crisis. Because we understand Blinken is coming to Kenya, his focus is in Ethiopia, basically, because he has been actually in contact with Kenyatta since the beginning of this year. They have been talking on phone, trying to push him to push for a solution into the crisis, but it seems that both sides are becoming hardliners. We hope that by tomorrow, after the meeting, that's on Tuesday, 16th November, there will be a solution to the whole issue.
And how is this sitting with ordinary Kenyans? How are they reacting to Mr. Blinken's visit? Just like you said, you know, he's coming to Kenya, but most of the discussion will be about Ethiopia.
I mean, most people know that Mr. Blinken is coming to Kenya, or the region is, the focus is in Ethiopia. But you understand, Ethiopia has been accusing the U.S. and other Western allies of taking sides in this issue, because they're accusing them of siding with Tigray because of commercial interests here and there. So by him to come in Kenya, it means that Americans are trying to use Kenya to sway the opinion, to push pressure the Ethiopian federal government authorities to make some decision as they want. But Ethiopians are also playing hard. At the weekend, you understand, the American government again put more sanctions on Eritrea, which is supporting Ethiopia in one or the other from in fighting the Tigray gunmen. But then the entire Ethiopian government and Eritrea, they have denounced the sanctions, and this now has made things more difficult and harder to negotiate. So his coming here is, well, it's an issue that's open.
All right then, Sarah Sombati, Kenyan journalist, thank you a lot. Still to come on the program. Archaeologists in Egypt discover a lost 4,500-year-old temple in the south of Cairo. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. South Africa's last white president, F.W. de Klerk, who died at the age of 85 last week, will be cremated in a private ceremony on Sunday. According to his foundation, the cremation and funeral will take place on Sunday, the 21st of November. It will be a private ceremony for family members and will not be open to media. De Klerk came to power in 1989 under apartheid, a system of legalized racism, but later became a key figure in the transition to democracy. In 1993, he shared the Nobel Peace Prize with former President Nelson Mandela for helping to negotiate an end to apartheid. His legacy, however, divides opinion in South Africa. He died on Thursday last week after having been diagnosed with cancer earlier in the year. The government in South Africa has withdrawn support for Miss South Africa in the Miss Universe contest to be held in Israel. There have been calls for Lalela Mswane to boycott the pageant, despite organizers saying it should not be politicized. Those opposing South Africa's participation in the contest are protesting against Israel's alleged committing of atrocities against Palestinians. The Miss Universe contest is set to be held on the 12th of December. Our South African Bureau Chief, Betty Debeer, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Betty. Help us understand the controversy over this Miss Universe contest in relation to Miss South Africa.
Well, you've said most of it all, but this has to do with political stance, and they say moral stance as well, according to the South Africans, regarding the situation in the Middle East. According to the South African government, dating way back even from Nelson Mandela, who hosted the chairman of the PLO, that's the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, at the time, I think that was in 1998, they stood by the Palestinians, claiming that the Palestinians stood by them in their own time of need during their struggle. And the belief of the South African government is that there is apartheid going on in that area in the Middle East, that as long as the Palestinians are not free to be whoever or move around the way they want, then their own freedom is not complete. And they've expressed that openly. We know that not too long ago, a year or two ago, they downgraded their mission in Israel, recalling the ambassador. I don't think they posted anybody back. So they've not been shy about their stance regarding the situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and that's where this is coming from. So they believe that Israel hosting it and a South African participant being part of it is a betrayal of the people of Palestine and a betrayal of some of the things that they've stood for regarding the situation in the Middle East. That's where this is coming from. And a 24-year-old young woman, a black lady who was recently crowned Miss South Africa, is in the middle of it all.
Indeed, I was going to ask, how is she feeling? What do we know is the next line of action for the organizers also?
The organizers have been engaging with government, and the minister or the ministry or Department of Youth, Sports and and the rest of it, released a statement last night saying that they're withdrawing support because the engagement with the organizers of Miss South Africa, who are the people taking Lalela Mswane to Israel come December the 12th for the Miss Universe. They're saying that, the organizers have displayed intransigence and disregard of advice on what could, I'm quoting them now, what could negatively impact the reputation and future of a young black lady. What they're trying to say is that even if she goes ahead to go, but the organizers are insisting that the young lady wishes to attend this event. And the debate now is, what has it got to do with anything? But I don't think, you know, you can actually pull away from the politics, because we've seen that displayed in several instances, sports and even beauty pageants. In 1976, we had this, but in this case it was in support of Black South Africa, or against the withdrawal of some of the participants was against the apartheid policies in South Africa. That's what, yes, against that. That's what I said. So we've seen this happen several times in several instances, including sports. Recently concluded a global sports tournament. We had some people not wanting to, I think a participant not wanting to wrestle or so against an Israeli participant. So she's in the middle of it. We understand that she's insisting on going. She can be stopped, but she's flying the South African flag, and the government department responsible for this is saying we're withdrawing if they're insisting on going ahead with it. That's where it is now. But I wouldn't want to be the young lady at this point because if she goes, there's a problem. If she doesn't go, there's also a problem for her and the career she's chosen.
Oh, well, we'll just have to wait and see how it all pans out. But thank you, Betty, our South Africa bureau chief. Archaeologists in Egypt say they've made one of the most important discoveries in decades. They have found one of the 4 lost sun temples built by the pharaohs while they were still alive in an attempt to turn themselves into living gods. It's believed that only 6 sun temples were built by Egyptian pharaohs some 4,500 years ago. Just 2 of them have been unearthed so far, so archaeologists are describing the discovery of a 3rd of such structure as the biggest find for 50 years. It stands in the Abu Ghorab site south of Cairo, and it would have featured a large courtyard with a tall obelisk inside it that was perfectly aligned with the east-west arc of the sun. Whilst the enormous pyramids were designed to ensure the pharaoh's status as a god in the afterlife, the sun temples were smaller structures and were meant to enshrine them as living gods, which means they may well have been cheaper and more effective at ensuring a pharaoh's divinity. And finally, on the program, Bolale Austin Peters directed musical Fela and the Kalakuta Queens debuted in Dubai as the first showcase by the Nigerian Pavilion at the ongoing Expo 2020. The musical, which highlights the story of the 27 women who stood by late Afrobeat icon Fela Kuti, was well received by a multinational audience. Our correspondent Mayowa Adegoke captured the event and shares more with us.
Bolanle Austin Peters' stellar production, Fela and the Kalakuta Queens, makes its UAE debut at the ongoing Expo 2020 in Dubai. The musical is the first event hosted by the Nigerian Pavilion at the global exhibition, which kicked off on October the 1st. This musical highlights the behind-the-music relationship of the Afrobeat legend with the 27 ladies he infamously married at a single ceremony back in 1978. Nollywood actress Osazi Godaro is an audience favorite as she makes her appearance in the story as Malaika.
thank you to Dubai Expo for having us and allowing us to showcase our culture, our love, our passion. I'm honored. I'm honored to be a part of showcasing who we are as a country. And I'm excited to see how other people partake in what we deliver. It's really, really nice seeing their expressions and their reactions and their thirst to learn more. So I really like that part of it.
Is light on heavy wind Adeniji, who says he'll play the character till he grows out of shape.
It's almost like a dream for me, you know, because it's been someone I've followed since I was like, what, 6 years old, and now I get to play the man. I mean, you know, it's something it's very surreal for me.
I'm happy to see people from all over the world being so impressed and loving what we did, and I'm proud that we are telling Nigerian stories to the world because we have beautiful stories to tell, and they're appreciating it. And the cast did a fantastic job in delivering it, so I'm happy.
Nigeria's presence at the expo is expected to attract tourists and investments. However, the ongoing flight restrictions between Nigeria and the UAE pose a major challenge.
I think we had about 40 cast and crew, another 7 from my team. It took a lot. But however, with the support of the Expo, we were able to get them all out from Nigeria. You know, it's a bit of a trek these days, but we're glad they're here. And I'm glad you saw the performance and you see what it is that can come out of Nigeria.
With this successful outing, Nigeria events are likely to now be in demand at Expo 2020. A quick resolution of lingering flight issues would definitely help in this regard, as many people would need to travel to Dubai to be a part of the Expo. From the Expo site, Maya Wadegoke for Channels Television News.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Lai.